approach where there are perhaps topics that can be scaled up, but then when you do that, then the reverse, the challenge is how you avoid, I would say, the multiplication of so many individual, I would say, initiatives that they are not, I would say, representative of a continental approach, and they remain much more as local initiatives. So that's a bit the challenge that we are facing, and I think a contribution for the discussion of today for the digital innovation hubs from the African Union Commission perspective. Thank you very much. And as I said, and at least for the education strategy, we have flyers available here, and I'm more than happy to enter in any discussions on the other topics. I just went quickly through. Thank you, Margareta. I hand over to you.
Thank you very much, Sandro. And I would like to introduce you now to another amazing speaker from Nigeria, GIZ Digital Transformation Center, the head of the team, Thuweba Diwani, that is Project Manager, Digital Transformation Center, GIZ Digital Solution from Lagos, Nigeria. Let's see if we can project here in the room. And Thuweba, can you hear us?
Hi, yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Thuweba, I can see you, but you're not yet projected. Give us a second. Our AV team is doing its best to fix the problem and to connect you to the audio to the room. Okay. Thuweba, we see you now on the big screen. Welcome in Addis Ababa digitally. Let's see if we can hear you well.
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, and I leave the floor to you. Thank you so much for being with us, and apologies for the hiccups in connecting to the Zoom link.
Yeah, no problem at all. Yeah, it's one of the challenges of digitalization sometimes. I wish it would be more automatic, but we're getting there. So
very cool.
Yes.
Can you tell us more about the Digital Transformation Center in Nigeria and also in other countries that GIZ is setting up? What is your goal and how you see the collaboration between your initiative and projects such as DIGILOGIC? Thank you.
Yes, the Digital Transformation Nigeria is one of over 20 digital transformation centers that have been started or implemented all over Africa. So we've got Kenya, Rwanda, Benin, Niger, Ghana, Nigeria as well as others. And these projects are supposed to foster digitalization or the digital transformation of MSMEs in their systems. All of them take up a different character depending on the needs of the ecosystem in which they operate. So they're part of most of them belong to a bigger global program initiative of the GIZ, and some of them, like mine, are sort of independent of that program but still stay in the network. So the one in Nigeria has started implementing in March of this year. We had a longer process than the others. Yes, we are very much in the process right now of implementing digital innovation hubs, and so we do work along the same lines as DIGILOGIC, and there's a lot of alignment there as well as synergies, as we found out when we discussed earlier this year. And we're currently in the process of a call for proposal for 5 digital innovation hubs. Should I continue or?
Yes, please go ahead.
So we are currently in the phase of a call of a proposal for digital innovation hubs that is going to close for Nigeria. These digital innovation hubs will foster digital transformation of non-tech MSMEs, which are largely excluded in the drive for digitalization in Nigeria. So we've got a lot of support for startups and other innovators producing very interesting solutions, but no one to absorb them. And at the same time, these MSMEs, they contribute to 49% of the GDP in Nigeria. And therefore, if they grow digital innovation, if they grow, then the economy will grow as well. And so the call for proposal runs up to 30. We're going to implement 5 digital innovation hubs under the framework of the African European Digital Innovation Bridge. And this will be a one-stop shop for the digital transformation of MSMEs. So along that line, to ensure that we are including marginalized communities, as in Nigeria, we have a lot of the ecosystem. 80% of what's going on is just in Lagos. So we have had stakeholder engagements in the other regions as well, in Kano, in Enugu, Port Harcourt, Abuja, as well as Lagos, to ensure that we can get good quality applications countrywide, which was one of the reasons we still didn't have a digital innovation hub under the ADIB framework. Start what we want to do, and that we get good quality proposals, and to enable so the services to reach other communities that may not be, or user groups that may not be in the mainstream yet. We are looking at the DIH having primarily a public benefit objective, and being sector and region specific. And so not only in Lagos, but maybe in the other regions as well. And we're looking at a consortium of actors, a minimum of 2, with the lead being Nigerian, because one actor alone, we feel, cannot provide the services that all the services that are needed by MSMEs to be able to transform. And so some of the services that these digital innovation hubs may offer would include ecosystem building, so where they're based, bringing together a network of service providers, test before invest services, so startups would be able to validate solution with user groups. Yes. You were saying?
Thank you very much. I would leave now the floor to Stephen Fox from VTT in Finland for a few words about what is the Digital Innovation Hub on the other side, on the European continent. And then I hope that you still have a few minutes to stay with us, because I would leave the floor to some questions from here. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning, Stephen. We can hear strong and clear. Let me just put on a slide of DIGILOGIC while you start presenting.
Okay, greetings from Finland. So I think in Europe, perhaps somewhat differently to Africa, the digital innovation hubs are within existing organizations. So, for example, the Technical Research Center of Finland, VTT, and Fraunhofer in Germany have been in existence for many decades. And so rather than starting from there not being an organization, we have to orientate existing organizations towards being digital innovation hubs. And in doing so, we have often a very large number of people who are very specialized. And what we've found so far with working with the teams thus far who've recently been selected as 12 startups to be monitored in the DIGILOGIC program, that an advantage of having large organizations with a great diversity of specialists is that we can provide focus expertise for particular topics. And what I'd like to do now is to focus in on one of those topics, which has been brought to our attention as important by a couple of the startups, and that's upskilling and the potential for digital innovation hubs to facilitate that. So what they mean in the particular cases is, for example, going over to electric vehicles. There are people in Africa with great skill as mechanics, and they are not yet used to dealing with electric vehicles. And to scale that up, we want to think of new ways of training people rapidly. So it's not just with digital skills to do with computer skills, but it's also the physical, because we are inevitably dealing with cyber physical systems. So where there may be some computer science functionality in an electric vehicle, nonetheless, it's still a physical vehicle with an electric battery. It needs to be charged up, and it needs to be maintained. And so if we think about what can be done with digital innovation hubs related to bringing new skills throughout Africa and Europe, because these new skills are needed in Europe just as much as they are in Africa. So we think the traditional way that comes from medieval Europe, from the city-states of medieval Europe, is apprenticeship training, where people would train for 5 years to do one narrow skill. For example, they might be rope makers, cord winders, or barrel makers, coopers, or still today, plumbers, carpenters, and so on. So that is medieval thinking. And if we apply digitalization to medieval thinking, then we are just going to get suboptimal outcomes from digitalization. So another perspective is to look at exactly what's required in the new tasks involved to do with, for example, electric vehicles, and train people through digital media to be technicians for electric vehicles. And they start off with being able to do the most frequently occurring task related to maintaining electric vehicles. And then if we think about in some very well-established global organizations, we can see the customer-facing personnel, they have badges with stars on them. And if they've gone through all their training, they have 5 stars. But to begin with, they just have 1 star. And that means they've been trained to do one thing which is most needed. Now, this thinking, we can apply it to so many things. So, for example, there's a great research and development and innovation investments in off-grid sanitation. Now, if we trained through medieval means, apprenticeships, to train people to be, one person to be a ground worker, to lay drains, another person to be a plumber, another person to be a carpenter, another person to be a roofer, and then try to coordinate all those people to establish off-grid sanitation, it would be a organizational desperately difficult problem with all the problems that bedevil construction projects of all scales throughout the world. But if somebody's trained to be a off-grid sanitation technician, they can do a little bit of all those skills. They can be multi-skilled for that particular focus. The same with solar energy. Rather than training a multitude of people with a medieval perspective, we can use digital means to train people to be technicians to do all the tasks related to that. And then there can be rapid scaling up. Now, of course, in Africa, because there isn't so much legacy infrastructure, Africa has the opportunity to leapfrog over this medieval thinking that has its origins in the city-states of Europe many, many hundreds of years ago. So we need to think of this logic of digitalization. It should be a logic of the 21st century, not just applying digitalization to medieval thinking. So I shall now open the floor to questions.
Yes, thank you, Stephen, as always. Is there any question for our speakers? I see, yes, one question coming.
Yes. Hello, you hear me? Yes. Good morning, everyone. I'm Dr. Mohammed Yassin from the University of Lille in France, and I'm glad to attend this session. In the presentation of Mr. Sandro, he was showing the phases which were indicating 2021, the different phases in terms, and here in the strategy, I see they are action oriented. So basically, what are the concrete actions which are being taken? Because you see, you are putting the ministerial meeting at the end, and you were mentioning that it is bottom up instead of top down. So is it led by the people from the ground, this thinking, or just brought to them, and then they are just implementing this action? And I see the 9 strategic objectives you are putting here. What has been achieved up to now from these objectives, and to what extent, and how it is measured? Thank you. You mentioned that it is covering the 55 countries, and the adherence is only 25. What are the main challenges and for non-adherence from all, given that it is an African Union led initiative, so should be inclusive?
Thank you. I suppose I respond directly, Margarita? Okay. There are 2 points. Because so you were referring on the specific case, I suppose you're referring to the digital education strategy. As I said, the attempt was trying to have this combination of top-down, bottom-up approach. Okay, as you were saying, you need an enabling environment. At least also from the African Commission, you need to have an overall perspective that's a bit the top-down. The idea was also to combine that with a bottom-up approach and seeing also what was already happening on there, what is scalable and how it can go in the remit, I would say, as I said, of the African Commission, who cannot, I would say, impose things to member states, but can facilitate the work. In that framework, that's how I said, that was the objective. So now it's clear that the constituency of the African Commission is member states and regional economic communities. So they were the most or the main people we are speaking with. I think it makes also quite a normal counterpart to speak with when you come to discussion like, I would say, education, because education is by definition mainly, I would say, started, yeah, there is role for other stakeholders in it, but the member states are the central role of it. We have a different perhaps approach or complementarity approach when we speak about agriculture, for example, where it's clear that in agriculture, the private sector has also a much more perhaps important role to play in that environment. But okay, just to come back on the education strategy. So that's why this has been structured like that. Now, where do we stand now? Is that that has been 1 year of work. Didn't explain all the steps, but what we have done more or less was an assessment of the situation at the beginning. We have tried to develop also a so-called digital readiness index country per country. And when we did that, we have tried to use, data that were already available. That's not the perfect world. We took data, statistical data from international databases already available. As I said, there are some frustration there because you cannot measure all the element you would like to have. But at least the advantage of that is that those databases already exist. They are already produced on a yearly basis. So it means that once you have put the methodology, you can at least update the situation on a yearly basis. And what we did, we combine ICT indicators, so mainly coming from a UN organization called ITU, so the International Telecommunication Union, who on a yearly basis collect, I would say, ICT indicators. And then we took some sectorial indicators, in this case, education. Okay, and we had kind of a 2-page document with quite a numbers of indicators that gives an idea on the digital readiness index of each country. Out of that, we did an assessment, and that's how we went for this, I would say, with the task force members. We went on the development of that strategy that I was saying, a bit a combination of top-down, bottom-up. And we finally had here on the 1st and the 2nd of September, now very recently, the education ministerial meeting hosted by the African Union Commission, who endorsed that strategy. So it's brand new. I would say it's from September. So now, as I was saying to you and to the other participant, the challenge will now start to be an effective implementation on it. So I cannot tell you what is effectively implemented, and because we are just starting about that. Now, what is the plan to go there? The idea is obviously that we know that all the 55 countries cannot move at the same speed. So the likelihood is that with the African Commission, there will be a series of regional meetings where that strategy will again be, we say, represented. Member states will be recalled that they've signed on this, and then they have to take some now concrete action out of that. And likely the idea would be to try to identify who is willing to take a championship in their respective regions, so that there can be, I would say, a more concrete support to some specific countries who can then share their experiences with their peers. And those countries can be of 2 categories, or countries who are already advanced and who are willing to continue to move and share their experiences, or some countries, I was saying that in our digital assessment readiness, they are on the level that they can start the process, and they can, I would say, be part of that process from the beginning and share the experience with third countries. So that's the objective that we would like to have for next year. And the African Commission declared that next year would be at least the year of education. So that's what also a political push to get that effectively started. I would say now the real challenge is, will that work? I don't know. We have to come for the next meeting, and we'll review that at that moment.
Thank you, Sandro. I would leave the floor now to Dr. Vincenzo Lorusso, that is connected from Brussels. Dr. Vincenzo Lorusso is from the European Commission, Policy Officer from DG Research and Innovation. Good morning, Vincenzo. Thank you for waking up pretty early to join us from Brussels. You can hear us. Let's see if we can hear you.
Good morning, everyone. Can you hear me okay?
We can hear you very okay. Thank you, Vincenzo. I think you wanted to share also a couple of slides. Let's see if that works.
Right, so Zoom says that I'm disabled to do so. If you possibly enable me indeed.
I met Dr. Vincenzo Lorusso last week at the event in Nairobi I was mentioning before, where stakeholders from the research and innovation landscape from both Europe and Africa worked together for 3 days to see which are the priorities and how to foster the collaboration. We would ask Dr. Lorusso to tell us more about the outcomes of the event and how European Commission foresees the collaboration between EU and Africa. Thank you, Vincenzo. I leave the floor to you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Margherita, and a very good morning to everybody. Apologies for being a little bit late. I had a bit of a few technical hiccups, which indeed I guess are part of an ongoing process, which is taken into account by the IGF. Indeed, last week we had this, I would say, very successful AU-EU Innovation Agenda stakeholder events that took place in Nairobi, in Kenya, and also online at the same time. And there really the overall goal of the 2 days event was indeed to discuss on these draft documents, which is indeed the innovation agenda that in a nutshell really aims to accelerate the translation of research innovation endeavors into tangible positive impact on the ground, namely products, services, businesses and jobs in Africa as much as in Europe. And just trying to move to the next slide. This working document was published in mid-February this year, in the first day of the EU-Africa week that took place indeed in Brussels, which culminated with the EU-AU summit on the 17th and 18th of February. I mean, in a nutshell, this agenda consists of 4 objectives, which you can see them in here. Number 1, make it real. Number 2, generate impact by design. 3rd, strengthen people, communities and institutions. And the 4th, learn, monitor, scale it up. And these objectives are then articulated into short, medium and long-term actions according to the 4 priority areas of the AU-EU cooperation in science, technology and innovation, which are, as you can see in here, public health, green transition, innovation and technology, and capacities for science. Now, this year, 2022, following the publication of these working documents of the agenda of February 14th, is really very much dedicated to the so-called stakeholder dialogue. This is where we are engaging at African Union and European Union level with stakeholders across the innovation value chain to really benefit from the viewpoints, the feedback, the input on these draft documents to make sure that we can possibly amend it, expand it, edit it according to what are the actual needs on the ground in a way that then the final version of the agenda, which has to be ready by beginning of next year, will be hopefully as pertinent as possible to societal needs. Now, looking at today's discussions that we have in between Addis and elsewhere through the internet, indeed, I thought I would try and show you what is foreseen when it comes to digitalization, but also what is foreseen for digital innovation hubs within the context of the AU Innovation Agenda. And perhaps let me start by taking a step back and say that we believe that indeed digital innovation hubs would be instrumental and are expected to be at the core of the AU Innovation Agenda and of its implementation. And I'm actually very proud to say that not only we expect digital innovation hubs and their role within the innovation ecosystem to be involved actively in the implementation of the agenda, but I'm also proud to say that they are already being involved in the conceptualization of the agenda. So last week, before we look at the short-term actions in this slide, last week we had, amongst the several activities of this AU-EU Innovation Agenda stakeholder event, also an AU-EU Innovation Fair titled Meet the Innovators, where we showcase several through a pitching moment of more than nearly 2 hours, where we had the opportunities through several innovation hubs to have several entrepreneurs who were introduced by their respective champions, by their respective incubators, that really showcased their innovations with a 2-minute pitch. Most of them were coming from Africa, a few of them were also coming from Europe. This picture is taken from the event venue in Nairobi, and this picture moment was followed then by, this is the audience, and you can see the interest that this initiative really gathered in real life. And this picture moment was then followed by an innovation fair where the innovators were then really sharing, concretely speaking, their innovations, their projects to investors, other stakeholders, public and private investors, and so on and so forth. So now, coming back to today's scope of discussion, really we believe the digital innovation hubs are at the center of this implementation and the conceptualization and the finalization of this AU Innovation Agenda. To do that, we are trying to work as inclusively as possible with several of those important initiatives that are indeed part of the process that are indeed based on digital innovation hubs. A few names: DIGILOGIC was with us last week. ADPNet was also with us last week, at the same time enriching Africa in their entire ecosystems from South Africa to Zimbabwe, Nigeria, and so on and so forth. And in the next few slides, really very quickly to conclude, you can see highlighted in red the actions that are explicitly foreseen a crucial role played by digitalizations or digital transformation and transitions. So across several areas, basically, for instance, in the case of public health, but also in the case of capacities for science, in the area of digital education transformation, in the area of green transition for the midterm actions. And I believe that DIGILOGIC is also doing a lot of work in that space, and also moving from the medium term to the long term, inevitably. And of course, as obvious as it may look like, also in the area of innovation and technology. So perhaps I'll stop here not to take more of your time, and I'll be happy to, if time allows, to try and address any possible questions there may be. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Vincenzo. Let me give back the mic to the floor.
Thank you very much. My name is Chapiwa Chauka. I'm a policy officer at the African Union Commission, focusing on trade and digital trade and e-commerce. I just wanted to make an addition to what Sandro indicated under the digital transformation for Africa. That is the digital health, the digital education, as well as digital agriculture. We're also focusing on the digital trade aspect, which the strategy is almost ready. And I think I just wanted to comment DIGILOGIC, what they're doing in terms of smart logistics is going to add immensely to the African Continental Free Trade Area. So with that, I just wanted to say congratulations and job well done for that.
Thank you very much. And I should share the congratulations to all the partners across Africa and Europe for the results we brought forward. Any other question? Yes, sir.
So, my name is Peter King, for the record. I'm from Liberia, and I mean, as a student of supply chain management, I think this is a very nice initiative, and I believe that smart logistics is another good concept in Africa. But for what I think is the level of popularization, that because this is an innovation, we believe that one of the trends I have observed is always focusing on the advanced countries in most of the regs, like in the various regions. I believe that since this is something that you wanted to be popularized as a means to an end, or means to ensure that there is a reduction in wastage and a reduction in logistic time process, I believe that other countries who are in the sub-region can also benefit from those who have already been pushed ahead with this project or concept. So there should be a linkage that these countries that are already benefiting, because I realize that when you listed the countries you are partnering, you have people from Nigeria, you have from Ghana, but in the sub-region, I think Kenya as well, if I'm not mistaken. So we are looking at how this project can affect other countries that are also lagging behind. So it shouldn't be full-blown before other people get the benefit from it, so that it easily spread, and the idea of inclusivity is also experienced.
I suppose I should take your observation. You're totally right. But DIGILOGIC, the partners in the consortium that are developing the project, yes, you are right. They are coming from Zambia, from Ghana, from Nigeria. But all the programs that have been developed, capacity building, challenges, co-creation impact lab that I forgot to mention before, they are all open to anybody from Africa willing to join. So from one aspect. The other aspect is networking is important for us as well. I'm not, it's the first time from Nigeria. I've been in Nigeria for 15 years almost, but the first time for me in Addis Ababa, the first time in Ethiopia. And I've never been in Liberia, unfortunately. So it's a matter also of creating the network, meeting people with the right skills to develop new projects, answering to different calls and building up teams working together. And for me, for example, this session is very informative, and we'll be happy to have a chat with you right after. Anybody else like to give?
Just a brief comment, since it has been mentioned by my colleague, the importance of the digital trade in consolidating the transformation, because the experience of the COVID has put a push in digitalizing provisions of delivery of services, and maybe in the future here in Africa, we interestingly adhering to these imposed boundaries imposed on us from the Conference of Berlin in 1885. I don't know why we should not learn from the European, given this is a joint project between African Union and the European Union. Why not they transfer for the wisdom of the free movement of goods and services between the people who are constituting the same entity, and this is going to push forward the African free continental trade area, and this is going to also make a person from Liberia to communicate with a person in Egypt or from anywhere. We are adhering to this political boundaries, which is not from the nature of the Africa. I think we have to find people who are proactive to overcome these boundaries, and I think the digitalization is a good instrument for cross-bordering, especially if it is extended to the services, provision of services. Of course, Africa needs infrastructure for that, and each region can work hardly to improve the infrastructure, maybe the digital roads or infrastructures that will help the Africans to at least ameliorate the situation of their development. This is a comment. It is a personal comment. It's not representing the university, but this is my thinking. I did my PhD in Italy. I lived in Italy for 20 years, and I am Italian citizen as well, but also I'm African citizen. But this is what I am witnessing. I'm bringing my personal experience, and now I'm working on global e-business, and I see that everything is becoming digitalized. Nobody is in where I'm staying in is going to the market to buy or to order a service. Everything is done digitally. So this is a fate. So we have to prepare, and I will be very happy to hear from Sandro the digital readiness of each country. This will help me also to develop my work on this digital transformation project. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I have signals from the back of the room that the time for this session is over and we should leave the room to the next panel. So I would like to thank all the speakers from abroad. Some of them had to wake up very early to attend this event. So thank you very much, and thank you to all the participants. For any questions, we keep chatting outside here. Thank you so much. Bye.